Hello again. If I asked viewers to name the most advanced African countries, the ones which produce doctors and accountants whom we encounter in Britain, then the chances are they would name Nigeria and Ghana, possibly Kenya and Uganda. It is a racing certainty that nobody would say Mauritania, Chad, Niger, or the Central African Republic. What is it which makes Nigeria so likely to produce educated people as opposed to the Central African Republic or Rwanda? There are probably two reasons. One is the slave trade and the other, British colonialism. The slave trade was a pretty bad business for those who were taken from their homes by black slave traders and then sold to British, Portuguese or American dealers to be carried across the Atlantic. This happened principally in West Africa in the areas which we now call Nigeria and Ghana. However, it was the ancestors of those living on the coast of those countries who traded with the white slavers and learned in the process many useful skills such as accounting and economics. They became more sophisticated and modern in the process as a result of their contact with Europeans. They became, in short, civilized. This process accelerated after the end of the slave trade, when the British took over the running of those parts of Africa and taught the inhabitants how to live like modern Europeans. Look at the thumbnail to this video, which shows the Nigerian city of Lagos, which lies on the coast. Does anybody seriously imagine that this level of modernity would have been achieved without the intervention of Europeans? On the other side of the continent, a similar process took place on what was once known as the Swahili coast, Kenya for example. In this case, it was the Arabs who sought slaves, but exactly the same thing happened to those who dealt commercially with the Arabs, as did with the Yoruba and Ashanti, who were dealing with the Europeans in West Africa. Those peoples became more astute and learned a lot simply through the very process of trade. British colonisation also helped because, along with commercial nous, they learned about things such as reading and writing, the rule of law, medicine, and all the other aspects of civilised life. As they became more steeped in the culture of Britain, they also learned to speak English, which is of course now the language of the world. It is those influences which effectively kick-started civilisation in those parts of Africa. The interior of the continent, and I'm thinking now of places like Rwanda, Burundi and the Congo, are the places which were farthest removed from British influence and have, as a consequence, remained the most backward and unsophisticated. It is in such parts of Africa that we see the worst savagery, including even cannibalism. They are also, curiously enough, the places where slavery is still practiced. I'm thinking now of the Congo and Mauritania. It is without doubt true that the transatlantic slave trade caused great suffering, although we must also point out that the average Caribbean or African American is incomparably better off than those whose ancestors remained free and are now living in the interior of Africa. Would the average Jamaican or black person in New York really trade places with someone living in Rwanda? The same applies to British colonialism. There were certainly abuses and poor treatment of the indigenous inhabitants. In the long run, though, colonialism has worked to the advantage of Africa. Would the population really be thriving to the extent it is without the intervention of European medicine? Would there be great cities? Probably not. It seems to me that modern Africa owes a debt of gratitude to Europe for what was done. Rather than constantly moaning about it, they might one day find it in their hearts to say thank you for some of the immense advantages which we conferred upon them.